Please, be my wife again.
No, that is not possible.
Blood dripped onto white silk. Raina Vale knelt in the dirt, 500 wolves staring down at her, and tasted copper on her tongue. The pain in her chest felt like something alive trying to claw its way out through her ribs. She couldn't breathe. I couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel the bond, new and bright and perfect just seconds ago, tear apart like flesh under a blade. I reject this bond. Alpha King Dax Thornridge's voice cut through the night air, cold and final. She is unworthy of the Thornridge line. The words echoed across the clearing. The celestial gathering, the most sacred ceremony in wolf culture, had just become a public execution. Not of her body, that would have been kinder. Of everything she was, everything she could have been. The blood moon hung overhead, fat and red, watching it all happen. Raina's wolf howled inside her chest, a sound of pure agony that nobody else could hear. The mate bond wasn't supposed to break like this. Moon goddess pairings were eternal, unbreakable, chosen by forces older than memory itself. Rejecting one was like trying to reject your own heartbeat. Dax Thornridge had done it anyway. She looked up through the haze of pain and met his eyes across the ceremonial circle. For one moment, just one, she saw something flicker in that cold gaze, regret maybe, or recognition of what he'd just destroyed. Then his expression hardened into stone, and whatever humanity had been there vanished. Around them, the pack erupted into chaos. Whispers turned to shouts, gasps of horror. Lunavera, Dax's mother, stood from her seat of honor with her hand pressed to her mouth, eyes wide with shock. The elders looked between Raina and their Alpha King like they'd just watched him commit murder. They had, just not the kind that left a corpse. Raina's hands pressed into the earth, nails digging into soil that had been blessed for this ceremony. Her ceremonial dress, white with flowers braided into her dark hair, was ruined now. Blood from her nose had stained the silk. More blood trickled from her ears. The bond breaking had physical consequences. Her body was trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. She needed to get up, needed to move, needed to do anything except kneel here like a broken thing while hundreds of wolves watched her fall apart. So she stood. Her legs shook. The world tilted. But Raina Vale forced herself upright, one hand pressed to her chest where the bond had been. Blood still dripped from her nose. But she didn't wipe it away. Let them see. Let everyone see what their Alpha King had done. The crowd went silent. Even the whispers died. Raina lifted her chin and looked directly at Dax Thornridge. His jaw was clenched, hands fisted at his sides. He felt it too. She could see it in the rigid way he held himself. The rejection had hurt him as well. Not as much. He was an alpha, stronger, better equipped to survive this kind of damage. But it hurt. Good. Your loss, she said. Her voice came out steady, strong. She didn't recognize it as her own, but it carried across the clearing with perfect clarity. 2 words. That was all she could manage. But they were enough. Then Raina turned her back on the Alpha King and walked away. Every step felt like walking through fire. The broken bond screamed at her to stop, to turn around, to beg him to take it back. Her wolf thrashed and howled, desperate to return to its mate. But Raina kept moving, one foot in front of the other, through the crowd that parted before her like water, past the elders who looked stricken, past the Omega-born girls who wouldn't meet her eyes because they knew, they all knew, that what happened to her could happen to any of them. She walked out of the clearing with blood still dripping down her face and her head held high. Nobody tried to stop her. The forest swallowed her whole the moment she crossed the tree line. Ancient oaks and pines closed in around her, blocking out the blood moon's light. Raina made it maybe half a mile before her legs gave out. She collapsed against a massive oak tree, sliding down until she sat in moss and dead leaves. The pain was unbearable now. Without the adrenaline of 500 watching eyes, there was nothing to distract from the agony in her chest. The bond wasn't completely gone. She could still feel the jagged edges of it, raw and bleeding, like an open wound that would never heal. Moon goddess pairings didn't just disappear. You could reject them, but the scar remained forever. Dax had chosen this damage. For both of them. Unworthy, he'd said. Reyna laughed, and it came out broken and bitter. Of course she was unworthy. She was Omega-born, lowest rank in the pack hierarchy. Her father had been a decent warrior before he died, but her mother had died when Reyna was 5, and nobody talked about her. Reyna had grown up invisible, unremarkable, the kind of wolf who should never catch an Alpha King's attention. Except the moon goddess didn't make mistakes. Everyone said that. The goddess chose pairs for a reason, binding souls meant to strengthen each other. Reyna had grown up hearing those stories, watching fated mates find each other at gatherings, seeing the rightness of those bonds. The moon goddess had chosen her for Dax Thornridge, and he had looked her in the eye and said no. Rage burned hotter than pain. Reyna pushed herself to her feet. Her body screamed in protest, but she ignored it. She walked deeper into the forest, away from Silver Peak, away from the ceremony, away from everything. No destination, just movement. The trees grew older and thicker. The blood moon barely penetrated the canopy here, her vision blurred with tears she refused to shed, with pain that wouldn't stop, with fury that had nowhere to go. So she screamed. It ripped out of her throat, raw and primal and full of everything she couldn't say. She screamed until her voice gave out, until her knees buckled again, until she had nothing left inside except the hollow ache where the bond should have been. The forest answered. Trees shook. Not from wind. There was no wind. They trembled like something massive had just woken beneath the earth. The air grew heavy and electric. Power pressed against her skin from all directions, crushing and ancient and aware. Reyna froze, gasping for breath. Who's there? Her voice came out hoarse from screaming. Nothing moved. But something watched. She could feel its attention like weight, like being studied by something that had existed long before wolves walked upright. The pressure intensified, focusing on her. Her wolf stirred despite the pain, and alert and wary. This wasn't pack magic. This was older than packs, older than territories, older than anything she'd been taught existed, something that recognized her rage. The moment stretched, then, as suddenly as it came, the presence withdrew. Trees went still, air lightened. But Reyna understood something fundamental had just changed. The rejection had broken more than a bond. It had opened a door. She turned north, toward Thornwood, toward the grandmother her father had forbidden her to seek. The girl who knelt in that clearing was gone. What walked out of this forest would make the Alpha King regret every word he'd spoken under the blood moon. She just didn't know it yet. What would you do if the one destined for you destroyed you in front of everyone you knew? The search parties found nothing. Dax Thornridge stood at the edge of Silver Peak territory 2 weeks after the rejection, watching his warriors return empty-handed for the 6th time. No scent trail, no tracks, no sign that Reyna Vale had ever existed at all. Nothing, Alpha, Beta Colt reported, his face grim. We've covered every inch of the territory 3 times. If she's out there, she's beyond our borders. Then expand the search. We already have. Checked every neighboring pack, every neutral zone, every rogue settlement within 50 miles. Colt hesitated. Some of the pack thinks she's dead. The words hit like a physical blow. Dax's wolf snarled inside his chest, clawing to get out. She's not dead. Bond breaks kill Omega-borns, everyone knows that. She's not dead. Dax's voice came out as a growl, Alpha command bleeding through. Colt took a step back, neck baring automatically in submission. But his beta wasn't wrong. The statistics were brutal. 70% of Omega-born wolves died within days of a rejected mate bond. Their bodies couldn't handle the trauma. The remaining 30% usually died within a month. Only the exceptionally strong survived longer. Dax had counted every single day since the rejection. 14 days. 2 weeks of searching, of lying awake at night feeling the broken bond pulse poison through his veins, of his wolf howling for a mate he'd thrown away. He'd done it to protect her. The Ashwood curse had killed every Thornridge mate for 6 generations. Rejecting Raina was supposed to save her life. Instead, it might have ended it. "Keep searching," Dax ordered. "Double the patrols. I question every wolf within 100 miles. Alpha, the pack needs—" "I said keep searching." Colt left without another word. Dax stood alone at the border, staring into the forest like he could will Raina back into existence. The broken bond ached worse every day. His mother had warned him. Lunavera had pulled him aside the morning after the rejection, fury and grief warring on her face. "You've killed her," she'd said quietly, "and you've cursed us all." At the time, he'd thought she was being dramatic. Now, standing in the ruins of his territory as everything fell apart around him, Dax understood she'd been telling the truth. The first attack came 3 days after the rejection. Rogues breached the eastern border, something that hadn't happened in over 50 years. They killed 2 warriors before retreating. The second attack hit the western border a week later. 4 more dead. The protection spells were failing. Ancient wards tied to the Thornridge bloodline, spells that had protected Silver Peak for 2 centuries, were crumbling. The Pack's historian had explained it in terms Dax couldn't argue with. The protections required an alpha bond, not just any bond. A true mate bond, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Dax had rejected that bond under a blood moon. The consequences were immediate and catastrophic. "Alpha." A young warrior approached, keeping his distance. "Elder Mira requests your presence in the manor. More Luna candidates have arrived." Dax closed his eyes. Right. The candidates. The elders had wasted no time. If Raina was gone, they needed a replacement Luna immediately. They'd sent word to every allied pack, every powerful family, calling in favors and making promises. Daughters of alphas and betas had been arriving for days, each one perfect on paper, each one completely wrong. The first candidate sat in his study when he arrived, Lady Selene Blackwood, daughter of the Northern Alpha. Beautiful, capable, educated. She smiled at him with confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Alpha Thornridge, thank you for seeing me." Dax sat across from her and felt absolutely nothing. No pull, no connection. The empty space where Raina's bond should have been remained jagged and cold, rejecting every substitute. They talked for 30 minutes about alliances and territory and her qualifications. She was impressive. The pack would accept her. It should have been easy. "May I?" Selene reached across the desk to touch his hand. His wolf recoiled so violently Dax actually jerked away. The movement was instinctive, impossible to hide. Selene's smile faltered. "I see," she said quietly. "Your wolf hasn't accepted the rejection." "Thank you for coming, Lady Blackwood. I'll be in touch." She left with wounded pride in every step. 3 more candidates followed over the next week, all qualified, all beautiful, all absolutely wrong. By the time the last one departed, Dax wanted to tear the manor apart with his bare hands. The elders cornered him that evening, 6 of them led by Elder Mira, their expressions ranging from disappointed to furious. "You rejected all 4, Mira stated flatly. "None were suitable." "They were all perfectly suitable. You're being stubborn." "The bond won't accept a substitute." Dax's hands clenched on his desk. "I've tried." "Then unreject your fated mate," Elder Tom said. "Track her down, apologize, do whatever it takes to restore the bond." "She's probably—" "Don't!" Mira's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare say she's dead when you haven't found a body. Maybe you're not looking hard enough because then you'd have to face what you did." The accusation hung in the air. Dax's wolf snarled, but he forced it down. She wasn't entirely wrong. "The pack is dying," Tom continued, gentler. "We've lost 6 warriors in 2 weeks. The borders are failing. Children are afraid to play outside. You need to fix this before there's nothing left to save." They filed out, leaving Dax alone with truths he didn't want to face. 3 months after the rejection, everything fell apart. Dax stood in the command center at midnight, staring at reports that made his blood run cold. 20 rogues had breached the eastern border, not the usual desperate loners, but organized fighters moving with military precision. They'd targeted the orphanage. By the time his warriors drove them back, 3 children were gone. The message arrived an hour later, carved into the back of a dead rogue. "Your pack is weak without your true Luna. How long until it falls completely?" Thorn Ashwood. Dax put his fist through the wall. Colt found him in the ruins of his office at dawn. "You need to find her. She hates me. She should." Colt picked up a piece of broken furniture. "But she's your mate. This pack is dying without her, so you're going to track her down, grovel if you have to, and pray she's merciful enough to give you a second chance you don't deserve." "What if she says no?" "Then we're all dead anyway." Colt headed for the door, then paused. "But you won't know until you ask." The witch arrived 3 days later, an old woman with eyes like storm clouds who took one look at Dax and laughed. "You're the fool who rejected his moon goddess mate. I've heard the stories. Can you find her or not?" "Oh, I can find her." The witch began her spell, herbs and bone and words in a language older than wolves. "The question is whether you're ready for what you'll discover." The spell took hours. When the witch finally opened her eyes, she smiled. "Thornwood, your mate is alive, Alpha King. Very much alive." She paused. "And she's become something extraordinary. Could you forgive someone who broke you, even if they claimed it was to save you?" Dax hadn't slept in 72 hours. He sat in his study as dawn broke over Silver Peak, staring at reports he could barely focus on. Another breach, 2 more injuries. The territory was bleeding from 1,000 cuts, and he couldn't stop any of them. The broken bond was killing him. Not quickly. That would have been mercy. Instead, it was slow poison eating away at his strength, his clarity, his control. His wolf paced constantly beneath his skin, agitated and snarling. Some nights Dax wasn't sure which of them was really in charge anymore. He'd thought the pain would fade after a few weeks. 3 months later, it was worse than ever. The door opened without a knock. Only one person would dare. Beta Colt stepped inside, looking as exhausted as Dax felt. "The council is assembled. They're waiting." "Right. The emergency session. Another attack last night. Rogues had killed a patrol on the northern border. That made 11 dead in 3 months." The pack was terrified. Dax forced himself to stand, ignoring how his hands shook. The mirror on the wall showed a stranger, hollow eyes, weight lost from his frame, the signs of a wolf slowly dying from the inside out. He looked away. The council chamber was full when he arrived. Not just elders, but senior warriors, pack representatives, concerned citizens. All of them looked at him with the same expression, fear mixed with accusation. Their alpha was failing them. They weren't wrong. "We've lost 11 pack members in 3 months, Elder Mira began without preamble. "The protection wards are at 30% strength. Our borders are collapsing. As neighboring packs are starting to question our ability to defend our territory." "I'm aware of the situation." "Are you?" Elder Tom leaned forward. "Because from where we're sitting, you're letting this pack die, rather than fix the mistake you made." Dax's wolf snarled. "Choose your next words carefully." "Or what? You'll reject us too?" Mira's voice was sharp. "The Ashwoods are circling like vultures. Thorn Ashwood has sent 3 messages in the last week, each one more threatening than the last. He knows we're vulnerable. Everyone knows. I've doubled patrols, increased training rotations, fortified the— None of that matters without a Luna." Tom cut him off. "The protection spells require a completed mate bond. You know this. We all know this. Find your mate. Bring her back. Restore the bond." It's the only way." "She's training with a witch in Thornwood," Dax said quietly. "I'm leaving tonight." The room went silent. Colt's head snapped up in surprise. This was the first he'd heard of it. "You found her?" Mira's expression shifted from anger to hope. "She's alive? According to the tracking spell, yes. Then what are you waiting for? Go, beg, grovel, do whatever it takes. Tom stood, and the rest of the council followed. Bring back our Luna, Alpha Thornridge, before there's no pack left to lead. They filed out, leaving Dax alone with Colt. You weren't going to tell me, his beta said flatly. I just decided this morning. And you're going alone? This isn't something I can bring warriors to fix. Dax moved to the window, staring out at the territory he was losing. I destroyed her in front of everyone. If there's any chance she'll listen, it won't be because I showed up with an army. She might kill you on sight. I know. The thought didn't scare him as much as it should. But I have to try. Colt was quiet for a moment. What if she says no? Then I'll accept it, and we'll figure out another way to save the pack. There is no other way. Dax turned to face his best friend. Then we'll die trying to find one. He left Silver Peak at sunset, riding alone on the northern road toward Thornwood. The journey would take 2 days if he pushed hard. 2 days to figure out what to say to a woman he'd humiliated and abandoned. 2 days to prepare for the possibility that she'd look at him with nothing but hatred in her eyes. His wolf howled inside his chest, desperate and mournful. For 3 months it had been searching for her. This calling out through the broken bond to a mate who'd vanished. Now they were finally going after her. It might be too late. The first night, Dax made camp in a clearing 20 miles from Silver Peak. He should have been exhausted. He'd barely slept in weeks. But his mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Raina kneeling in the dirt at the ceremony, blood dripping from her nose, looking at him with shock and betrayal. Your loss, she'd said. At the time, he'd thought he was being noble. The Ashwood curse was real. 6 generations of dead Thornridge mates proved it. His great-grandmother had been torn apart by rogues. His aunt had vanished and never been found. His cousin's mate had lasted 3 years before the Ashwoods finally got to her. The pattern was undeniable. Become the Thornridge Luna and paint a target on your back. Dax had convinced himself that rejection would save Raina from that fate. Better a broken bond than a dead mate. He'd sacrifice his own happiness to keep her safe. She'd hate him, but she'd be alive. He'd been a coward and a fool. The curse was tied to the mate bond itself. By rejecting Raina, he hadn't saved her. He'd just removed the pack's protections and made everyone vulnerable. The Ashwoods were attacking because they could. The borders were failing because the magic required a completed bond. He'd destroyed his mate for nothing. Dawn broke cold and gray. Dax packed his camp and continued north, pushing his horse harder than he should. The landscape changed as he traveled, from Silver Peak's dense forests to the rocky hills that marked Thornwood's borders. He reached the boundary at midday on the second day. The moment he crossed the line, every instinct he had screamed danger. The air felt different here, heavier, charged with old magic. This wasn't pack territory, this was witch country, and wolves weren't welcome. Dax dismounted and continued on foot. The tracking spell had marked a specific location, a cottage deep in the forest where Raina was supposedly staying. He moved carefully, aware that he was trespassing, aware that Raina might not be his only problem. He found her at dawn on the third day. The clearing appeared suddenly, carved out of the ancient forest like a wound. Training dummies stood in precise rows, most of them destroyed, and scorch marks blackened the ground. The air smelled of ozone and burned wood, and in the center of it all stood Raina Vale. Except it wasn't Raina. Not the Omega-born girl he'd rejected 3 months ago. This woman's hair had gone silver white, glowing faintly in the early light. Her eyes burned violet when she moved. She wore fighting leathers instead of pack clothes, and her stance radiated deadly confidence. She was demolishing targets with magic. Dax watched from the tree line, stunned. Purple light exploded from her hands, tearing through reinforced wood like it was paper. She moved with fluid grace, combining combat techniques he recognized with magic he'd never seen before. Every strike was precise, controlled, lethal. She'd become a weapon. I know you're there, Raina said without turning around. Her voice was different too, stronger, colder. You might as well show yourself, Alpha King. Dax stepped into the clearing, his heart hammered against his ribs. The broken bond flared to life in his chest, recognizing its other half. His wolf surged forward desperately, wanting to run to her, to beg, to make things right. He forced it back. "Raina, that's not my name anymore." She still didn't turn. Another target exploded under her assault. "I left that girl in your clearing. She died the night you rejected her. I need to talk to you." "You need?" She spun, and magic slammed him backward. He crashed into a tree, pinned by invisible force. The air left his lungs. Her violet eyes blazed with fury as she stalked toward him. "You need?" The pressure on his chest intensified. Dax gasped, unable to breathe, unable to move. This was her power, raw and overwhelming, crushing him like an insect. "You humiliated me!" Raina hissed. "Destroyed me in front of everyone I knew, made me worthless, made me nothing. And now you show up talking about what you need?" "I was protecting," he gasped. "Liar!" The magic cut off. Dax collapsed to the ground, coughing. When he looked up, she was standing over him, violet eyes cold as winter. "Stay away from me, Alpha King. There's nothing you can say that I want to hear." She turned and walked away. Dax lay in the dirt, broken ribs screaming, and watched his mate disappear into the forest. His wolf howled in despair. The bond pulled toward her, begging him to follow, to fix this, to make her understand. But as Raina's figure vanished into the trees, Dax whispered the only truth that mattered. "I love you." She froze. For one heartbeat, she stood perfectly still. Then she kept walking, never looking back. Silver Peak looked like it was dying. Raina stood at the edge of the territory 3 days after Dax found her in Thornwood, taking in the decay. She'd disguised herself with Maven's magic, an illusion that made her look like any other traveling wolf. Nobody would recognize the Omega girl with silver white hair and violet eyes. Good. She didn't want recognition. She wanted information. The pack's main square was half empty at midday, where it should have been bustling. The few wolves she saw moved quickly, nervously, eyes constantly scanning for threats. Guard patrols passed every few minutes, far more than necessary. The whole territory reeked of fear. Raina felt no satisfaction in it. These weren't the wolves who'd hurt her. They were just trying to survive. She made her way through the streets toward the Eastern District where her sister lived. Bryn was 19 now, training to be a healer. They'd been close before the rejection, despite Raina being Omega-born and Bryn ranking higher. Their father had raised them to look out for each other. Raina hadn't seen her sister in 3 months, hadn't even sent word that she was alive. Guilt twisted in her chest, but she pushed it down. There'd been reasons for the silence, good ones. Bryn's small house appeared around the corner. Raina paused in the shadows, watching. The windows were dark, nobody home. She was about to leave when voices carried from behind the building. "Can't keep doing this." That was Bryn, her voice strained with stress. "Cade, your brother needs you at the manor." "The pack needs—" "My brother destroyed his mate and now expects everyone to clean up his mess." A male voice, bitter. Cade Thornridge, Dax's younger brother. "I'm not helping him. He's still your alpha. He's a fool who chose pride over his moon goddess mate. The whole pack is suffering because he couldn't accept an Omega-born girl." Raina's breath caught. She moved closer, careful to stay hidden. "Don't say that where others can hear," Bryn warned. "It's treason." "It's the truth." Footsteps. Then Cade's voice softened. "I'm sorry. I know she was your sister. This must be hard for you." "She wasn't weak," Bryn said quietly. "Everyone thinks Omega-borns just die from bond breaks, but Raina was stronger than that. I think she ran. I think she's out there somewhere." "Then why hasn't she come home? Would you? After what he did?" Silence stretched between them. Raina leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Her sister still believed in her, still defended her, even after 3 months of silence. "I should tell you something," Cade said finally. "The elders want me to marry you." Raina went cold. "What?" "If Dax can't produce an heir with his true mate, the line passes to me. They want to secure the bloodline. You're healer-trained, well-respected, and your sister's connection to the rejected mate gives us political cover." He paused. "I told them no. Cade, I care about you, Bryn, but I won't be used as a replacement for my brother's mistakes. You deserve better than that." Footsteps moved away. Bryn's voice called after him, but Reyna didn't hear the words. Her mind was racing. The elders wanted to marry Bryn to Cade, to secure the bloodline, which meant if Reyna didn't return, her sister would be pulled into Thornridge politics whether she wanted it or not. Bryn would become leverage, a bargaining chip, another piece on the board because Dax Thornridge couldn't make the right choice. Reyna waited until Bryn went inside, then slipped away. She had one more stop to make before leaving Silver Peak. The Luna's Memorial Garden stood at the heart of the territory. Luna Vera had died 6 months before the rejection. Sudden illness that took her in 3 days. She'd been beloved. The garden was her legacy, carefully maintained even now. Reyna entered at dusk when the grounds were empty. She walked the stone paths until she found the grave marker, simple granite with Vera's name and dates. Flowers from morning visitors were already wilting in the heat. Reyna pulled a silver flower from her pocket. Maven had taught her to craft them from moonlight and magic. They never wilted, never died. A fitting tribute for a Luna who'd always been kind to an Omega-born girl. She placed it on the grave. "You were the only one who tried to stop him," Reyna whispered. "I heard your voice that night. You called out in horror when he rejected me. Thank you for that." The air shifted. Reyna looked up to find Luna Vera's ghost standing on the opposite side of the grave. The spirit was translucent, glowing faintly in the gathering darkness. Her expression was sad. "Child?" the ghost said softly. "You've become powerful. I had no choice. My son is a fool." Vera moved closer, her form flickering. "But he did it to protect you." Rage flared hot in Reyna's chest. "Everyone keeps saying that. He did it to protect me. He did it because of the curse. He did it for good reasons." She stood, fists clenched. "He did it because he's a coward who couldn't face the possibility of losing me, so he threw me away first." "The Ashwood curse is real. Every Thornridge mate for 6 generations—" "I know about the curse," Reyna cut her off. "Maven told me everything. Your mother-in-law torn apart, your sister-in-law vanished, your niece's mate murdered." She stepped closer to the ghost. "You know what would have stopped that? An alpha strong enough to protect his mate? A Luna powerful enough to defend herself? Not rejection, not running away from the bond the moon goddess herself chose." Vera was silent for a long moment. "He never asked what you wanted." "No," Reyna's voice cracked. "He never did. The pack is dying without you. The protection spells—" "I know." Reyna turned away from the grave. "I've seen the decay, felt the weakness in the borders. That's what happens when you reject a moon goddess bond under a blood moon. Ancient magic doesn't forgive." "Will you?" The question hung in the air. Reyna didn't answer. She walked away from Luna Vera's ghost, from the Memorial Garden, from Silver Peak territory. But the image of her sister's worried face stayed with her all the way back to Thornwood. Maven found her at dawn, destroying the training grounds. Purple light exploded from Reyna's hands, tearing through reinforced targets like they were made of paper. Each blast left scorch marks on the earth. Each strike carried 4 months of rage that had nowhere else to go. "You have a visitor," Maven called from the tree line. Reyna didn't pause. Another target disintegrated. "Tell him to leave." "I did, 3 times. He's still standing at the border." "Then let him stand." Maven watched her granddaughter demolish another row of dummies. "He's been there all night, child, just standing in the rain, waiting." "Good." Reyna's magic flared brighter. "Let him wait forever." But curiosity won. It always did. 20 minutes later, Reyna approached the Thornwood border where Dax Thornridge stood like a statue in the mud. Rain had soaked through his clothes. He looked terrible, weight lost, dark circles under his eyes, hands that trembled slightly when he saw her coming. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Reyna." That's not my name anymore." She stopped 10 feet away, arms crossed. "I left that girl in your clearing. She died the night you rejected her. I need to talk to you." "You need?" Magic sparked at her fingertips. "Interesting choice of words, Alpha King. You need something from me now? Please, just 5 minutes." She moved without thinking. Purple light shot from her hands, slamming him backward into a tree. Invisible force pinned him there, crushing his chest. His eyes went wide as air left his lungs. Raina stalked closer, letting him see exactly what she'd become. "You humiliated me in front of 500 wolves, called me unworthy, threw away a bond the moon goddess herself chose, and now you show up talking about what you need? I was," he gasped, struggling to breathe, "protecting you." "Liar!" The word cracked like thunder. She released him. Dax collapsed to the ground, coughing and gasping. When he looked up, saw she was standing over him with violet eyes blazing. "Stay away from me, Alpha King. There's nothing you can say that I want to hear." She turned and walked away, back toward Maven's cottage. Each step felt like victory. He'd come crawling back, and she'd crushed him, rejected him the way he'd rejected her. It should have felt better than it did. Behind her, Dax's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I love you." Raina froze mid-step. The words hit like a physical blow. The broken bond in her chest flared with sudden, desperate hope. Her wolf whined, wanting to turn around, wanting to run back to him. She kept walking, didn't look back, didn't acknowledge the words that might have changed everything 4 months ago, but her hands shook all the way home. The message arrived 3 days after Dax's failed attempt at reconciliation. Maven burst into the cottage at dawn, her face gray with fear. "They took Bryn." Raina was on her feet instantly. "Who?" "Ashwood Pack. Thorn himself led the raid on Silver Peak last night." Maven thrust a blood-stained note into her hands. This was left at the border. The words were carved into parchment. "I have your sister, Little Witch. Come to Ashwood territory by the new moon, or she dies screaming. Your alpha can't save her. His magic is too weak. But you're exactly what I need." Thorn Raina's magic exploded outward, shattering every window in the cottage. Glass rained down around them. Maven didn't flinch. "There's more," her grandmother said quietly. "Thorn sent demands to Dax as well. Surrender Silver Peak territory or deliver you to Ashwood lands. He claims you're worth more than an entire pack." "How does he even know about me?" "Because he's your uncle." Maven's voice was flat. "Your mother's brother. I should have told you sooner, but I hoped he'd never find out you existed." The room spun. Raina grabbed the table for support. "My mother's brother is Thorn Ashwood? Your mother fled the Ashwood Pack 23 years ago when she discovered what they really were, dark magic users, blood witches. She came to me for protection, met your father, tried to build a normal life." Maven's expression hardened. "Thorn's been searching for her bloodline ever since. Moonshadow witches are rare. Our power is old, pure. He wants it." "He can't have it." Raina's hands clenched into fists. "Where's Dax? What's he planning?" "A rescue mission. 50 warriors. A full assault on Ashwood's fortress." Maven shook her head. "It's suicide. Thorn's camp is protected by blood magic barriers. No wolf can breach them. Only Moonshadow witches can break that kind of protection." Understanding hit like ice water. "He knows I'll come." "Of course he knows. He took your sister specifically to draw you out." Maven gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me carefully, child. Thorn is stronger than you are right now, more experienced, more ruthless. If you go after Bryn alone, he'll capture you both." "Then what am I supposed to do? Let Bryn die?" "No. You coordinate with the Thornridge wolves. Let them handle the warriors while you focus on breaking the magical barriers." Maven's eyes were fierce. "And you make sure Thorn Ashwood never threatens this family again." Raina was already moving and grabbing weapons and supplies. Her mind raced through everything Maven had taught her about barrier magic, combat spells, blood magic countermeasures. 4 months of brutal training had turned her into something dangerous. Time to prove it. "One more thing." Maven called as Reyna reached the door. "Thorn will try to turn you, offer you power, position, a place in the Ashwood line. He's very good at manipulation." "I'm not interested in anything he's offering." "I know, but be prepared. He's not just after your power. He wants to replace what your mother took from him when she left. Family." Reyna's laugh was bitter. "Then he should have thought of that before kidnapping my sister." She shifted into her wolf form and ran. Silver Peak was 2 hours away at full speed. The new moon was in 3 days. Not much time to plan, to coordinate, to prepare for a battle that would probably get them all killed. But Bryn was her sister, her only living family besides Maven, and Reyna would burn Ashwood territory to the ground before she let Thorn hurt her. The broken bond pulsed in her chest as she ran, pulling her toward Dax's territory, toward the Alpha who'd thrown her away but now needed her help, toward a confrontation she'd been avoiding for 4 months. This time, she was ready. Dax looked up from the war table to find Reyna standing in his command center doorway. His breath caught. She was radiant and terrifying in equal measure. Silver hair pulled back for battle, violet eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight, wearing black combat gear that made her look like an avenging spirit. 4 months had transformed the Omega-born girl into something that made his alpha wolf drop its head in instinctive submission. "I'm here for Bryn," she said flatly. "Not you." Every wolf in the room turned to stare. Colt's jaw dropped. Cade straightened from where he'd been leaning against the wall. The other warriors looked between their alpha and the witch who'd just walked into their territory like she owned it. Dax found his voice. "You came. My sister is in danger. Of course I came." Reyna moved to the war table, studying the maps laid out there. "Show me your plan." "We're not sure you'd—" "Show me your plan, Alpha King, or I walk out and handle this myself." The command in her voice made his wolf whine. Dax gestured to the maps. 50 warriors. "We breach the western wall at dawn, fight through to the holding cells, extract Bryn and retreat before—" "That's a terrible plan." Silence fell. Nobody contradicted their alpha in his own command center. Nobody except, apparently, Reyna Vale. "Excuse me?" Dax kept his voice level. "Ashwood's fortress is protected by blood magic barriers. Your warriors will die before they get within 100 yards of the western wall." She pointed to a different section of the map. "The eastern approach has a weak point in the barrier structure. I can break through there. Your wolves provide distraction on the western side while I go in from the east." "Absolutely not. You're not going in alone." "I'm a Moonshadow witch. I'm the only one who can go in." Reyna's eyes met his. "Unless you have another witch handy?" She had him there. Dax's hands clenched on the table edge, and everything in him screamed not to let her walk into danger alone. The mate bond, broken and poisonous as it was, pulled toward her with desperate intensity. "I'll go with you," he said. "No." That wasn't a request. And that wasn't an invitation. Reyna leaned forward. "You want to help your pack, Alpha King? Then do what you do best. Lead your warriors in the diversionary assault. Let me handle the magic." "She's right," Colt interjected quietly. "We need her for this, Dax. And arguing won't change the tactical reality." Dax wanted to put his fist through the wall. Again. Instead, he forced himself to nod. "Fine. But we coordinate timing. I want communication spells in place. The second you run into trouble, I won't. The second you run into trouble, you signal. My wolves will break off and come to your position." Reyna studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Acceptable. They spent the next 3 hours hammering out details. Reyna challenged every assumption, questioned every tactic, pushed back on decisions Dax had made. His warriors watched in shock as their alpha actually listened, actually changed plans based on her input. Cade pulled him aside during a break. "She should have been Luna." "I know. You threw away the strongest mate our bloodline has seen in generations." "I know." Dax's voice came out harsh. "You think I don't realize that every single day?" His brother's expression softened. Then fix it. After we get Bryn back, actually fix it. Night fell. The assault was planned for dawn. Most of the warriors dispersed to rest before battle. Dax found Reyna alone on the manor's eastern balcony, staring out at the forest. He approached carefully. She tensed, but didn't leave. "After this," Dax said quietly, "I'll never bother you again. But let me say it once. I was wrong. About everything. You were always strong enough. Stronger than me, probably. I was the weak one, too afraid to face the possibility of losing you. So I pushed you away first." Reyna didn't turn. "Your opinion stopped mattering 4 months ago." The words cut deep. Dax nodded, accepting them. "I know, but I needed you to hear it anyway." He turned to leave. As he passed, their shoulders brushed. The broken bond flared to life, sharp and desperate and aching. Both of them flinched from the contact. Reyna's hand shot out, grabbing the railing for support. Dax stumbled, breath catching at the sudden rush of sensation through the damaged bond. For 5 seconds they stood frozen, not looking at each other, both feeling the pull of what they'd lost. Then Reyna straightened and walked away without a word. Dax remained on the balcony long after she'd gone, hand pressed to his chest where the bond sat broken and bleeding, and wondered if some mistakes could never be fixed. Blood painted the dawn red. Reyna crouched at the eastern barrier, hands pressed against the invisible wall of magic that protected Ashwood territory. Dark energy pulsed against her palms. Old power, blood-soaked and vicious. Her uncle's work. "Before we continue, I'll like to know, can you fight beside someone who broke your heart?" Behind her, the sounds of battle erupted. Dax's warriors had engaged Ashwood forces on the western approach, exactly as planned. The distraction was working. Time to break through. Reyna channeled her power, violet light streaming from her hands into the barrier. The blood magic resisted, fighting back with tendrils of darkness that tried to corrupt her energy. She pushed harder. Maven's training had prepared her for this. Blood magic could be broken if you hit it with enough pure force. The barrier shattered. She was through. Moving fast now, invisible in the pre-dawn shadows, following her magical sense toward where they were holding Bryn. The fortress loomed ahead, ancient stone covered in glowing runes. More blood magic, every surface crawled with it. Reyna found the holding cells in the eastern wing. 2 guards stood watch. She dropped them with a brutal efficiency. Magic to the throat, no sound, both unconscious before they hit the ground. The cell door swung open. Bryn huddled in the corner, bruised but alive. "Reyna!" Her sister's voice cracked with disbelief. "You're alive! Oh my God, your hair!" "Later. Can you walk?" "Yes, but—" "Then move. We're leaving." They made it halfway across the courtyard before Thorn Ashwood appeared. He materialized from shadow, tall and imposing, with dark hair shot through with silver and eyes that burned red with power. Reyna felt the family resemblance immediately. He had their mother's bone structure, her high cheekbones. "Hello, niece," he said. The word made Reyna's skin crawl. Behind Thorn, more Ashwood warriors emerged from the fortress, at least 20, blocking their escape route. Then Dax crashed through the western wall. His wolf form was massive, black fur and silver eyes, alpha power radiating from every line of his body. 50 Thornridge warriors poured through behind him, engaging the Ashwood forces in brutal combat. Dax shifted to human, standing between Reyna and Thorn. "She's not going anywhere with you." "Touching." Thorn's smile was cold. The Alpha King finally grows a spine. Too bad it's 4 months too late. "Niece?" Dax glanced at Reyna. "What's he talking about?" "My mother was his sister," Reyna said, not taking her eyes off Thorn. "She ran away from this pack 23 years ago. He's been looking for her bloodline ever since." "And now I've found it." Thorn's power gathered, red light swirling around his hands. "Your daughter has remarkable gifts, sister's child. Moonshadow magic. Pure and strong. Wasted on wolves who don't understand its value." "I understand it just fine," Reyna shot back. "And it's not for you." Everything your mother had belonged to the Ashwood line, including her power, including you. The attack came fast. Red light exploded from Thorn's hands, aimed directly at Reyna's chest. She raised a shield, but his magic was stronger than she'd anticipated. The barrier cracked. She stumbled backward. Dax moved faster than thought, throwing himself between them. The blast hit him square in the chest. He went down hard, body convulsing, skin burning where the blood magic touched. Reyna screamed. The sound came from somewhere primal, somewhere beyond thought or reason. Her power exploded outward. Everything went violet. Pure moonshadow magic erupted from her in waves, tearing through Ashwood warriors, shredding blood magic barriers, obliterating everything in its path. Thorn raised his own defenses, but they weren't enough. Nothing was enough against the full force of her rage. The magical duel lasted seconds, felt like hours. Red light clashed with violet. The ground cracked beneath them. Stone walls crumbled. And then Reyna found the opening, one moment of weakness in his defense, and she poured everything she had through it. Thorn Ashwood disintegrated, literally came apart at the molecular level, screaming as moonshadow magic unraveled his very existence. The silence after was deafening. Reyna collapsed beside Dax. His chest was a ruin of burned flesh, barely breathing, eyes glazed with pain. She pressed her hands to the wound, channeling healing magic she barely knew how to use. "Don't you dare die for me now, you bastard," she whispered. His eyes focused on her face. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Had to," he gasped. "Couldn't lose you. Not again. Shut up. Save your strength." Around them, Thornridge warriors were mopping up the last Ashwood resistance. Colt appeared with Bryn, both of them staring at the destruction Reyna had caused. The entire eastern section of the fortress was gone, just gone. Reyna's healing magic flowed into Dax, knitting flesh, repairing damage, fighting the blood magic poison. It took everything she had. By the time his breathing steadied, she was shaking with exhaustion. But he was alive. Barely, but alive. "We need to move him," Colt said. "Get him back to Silver Peak before—" "I'll handle it," Reyna interrupted. She'd already done this much. Might as well finish the job. She saved the Alpha King's life for the second time in 4 months, and this time she had no idea why. 2 weeks after the battle, Dax finally cornered Reyna in the training yard. She'd been avoiding him. Successfully. For 14 days she'd stayed at Silver Peak helping with recovery efforts, healing wounded warriors, reinforcing broken barriers. But she'd made sure they were never in the same room together. He was done with that. "We need to talk." Reyna didn't look up from the weapons she was cleaning. "We really don't. You saved my life. Twice. I think that earns me 5 minutes. I saved Bryn. You were just collateral benefit." Dax moved closer. Around them, pack members were training, sparring, going about their daily business, at least 50 wolves within earshot. He didn't care. He dropped to his knees. The training yard went silent. Warriors froze mid-strike. Conversations died. Everyone turned to stare at their Alpha King kneeling in the dirt before the Omega-born witch. Reyna finally looked at him, eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done 4 months ago." Dax's voice carried across the sudden silence. "I rejected you because of a curse. The Ashwood pack has killed every Thornridge mate for 6 generations. My great-grandmother, my aunt, my cousin's mate. All of them died because they bonded with my bloodline," pack members whispered. Most of them knew the history, but hearing it laid out so bluntly was different. "I thought if I pushed you away, if I rejected the bond, you'd be safe from that fate. I convinced myself I was being noble, sacrificing my happiness for your life." Dax's hands clenched on his thighs. "I was a coward. I was arrogant. I was stupid. You deserved to know the truth. You deserved a choice. Instead, I made the decision for you and destroyed us both." Reyna's expression was unreadable. "You thought wrong." "I know." He bowed his head. "I know, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. But I'm begging you, not as your alpha because I'm not as your mate because I threw that away, just as a man who loves you desperately and knows he doesn't deserve a second chance. Please, give me the opportunity to earn you, to prove I've changed, to show you that you were always strong enough, and I was the weak one." The silence stretched. Wolves watched, barely breathing. This was unprecedented. Alpha Kings didn't beg, didn't kneel. They didn't lay their hearts bare in public like this. Dax Thornridge was doing all three. "I knew about the curse," Reyna said quietly. His head jerked up. "What?" "Maven told me. 6 weeks ago. She explained the whole history, how the Ashwoods target Thornridge mates, how every bonded pair ends in tragedy." Reyna's voice was steady, cold. "I knew all of it when I went to save you at Ashwood's fortress, when I broke through their barriers, when I obliterated Thorn." Understanding crashed through him. "You chose to risk it anyway. I chose to save my sister. You were secondary." But something flickered in her eyes when she said it, something that looked almost like a lie. Dax stayed on his knees. "Then let me be secondary. Let me be whatever you need me to be. Just don't walk away. The pack needs you. The protection spells need you. I—" His voice cracked. "I need you." There's that word again. Need. Reyna set down the weapon she'd been cleaning. "You need me to fix your mistakes. Need me to restore your borders. Need me to complete a bond you shattered. What about what I need, Dax?" It was the first time she'd used his name in 4 months. The sound of it nearly broke him. "Tell me," he said desperately. "Tell me what you need, and I'll move heaven and earth to give it to you." Reyna stood, walked over to where he knelt, looked down at him with those violet eyes that saw through every defense he had. "I need you to understand that the girl you rejected died that night. The Omega-born wolf who would have been grateful for any scrap of your attention is gone. I'm not her anymore." "I know. I'm a Moonshadow witch. I'm powerful in ways that terrify your pack." "I will never be the submissive Luna they expect. I will challenge you, I will fight you, and I will absolutely not tolerate being second-guessed or protected like I'm fragile." "I know," Dax repeated, "and I don't want that girl back. I want you, the woman who obliterated Thorn Ashwood, the witch who broke blood magic barriers, the warrior who saved her sister and an entire pack that didn't deserve her help." Reyna was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft enough that only he could hear. "I'm not ready to forgive you yet." The words hurt, but they were honest. Dax could work with honest. "I'll wait," he said, "however long it takes. I'll wait and I'll prove myself, and I'll show you that this time I won't fail you. Get up, Alpha King. Your pack is staring." He stood. Their eyes met at equal height. The broken bond pulled between them, aching and desperate for completion. Neither of them looked away. "One chance," Reyna said finally. "You get one chance to earn back what you destroyed. Mess it up, and I'm gone forever. Understood?" Relief nearly drove him back to his knees. "Understood. And Dax?" She leaned in close. "If you ever make a decision about my life without consulting me again, I will turn you into a toad and leave you in a pond. Are we clear?" Despite everything, he smiled. "Crystal clear, my queen. I'm not your queen yet, but you will be." It wasn't arrogance, it was promise, determination, truth. Reyna's lips twitched in something that might have been the beginning of a smile. Then she walked away, so leaving him standing in the training yard with 50 witnesses and the first real hope he'd felt in 4 months. The winter moon rose over Silver Peak 3 months after Dax knelt in the training yard. Reyna stood in the Luna's chambers, staring at her reflection. The ceremonial gown was silver and violet, colors that represented both wolf and witch. Maven had woven protection spells into every thread. The pack's best seamstresses had labored for weeks to create something worthy of a Moonshadow witch becoming Luna. "You don't have to do this," Bryn said quietly from the doorway. "Nobody would blame you if you walked away." "I know." Reyna touched the silver flower in her hair, the same kind she'd left on Lunavera's grave months ago. "But I'm not walking away." 3 months, that's how long Dax had spent earning back her trust. He'd been patient, respectful, never pushing. He'd given her equal voice in pack decisions. He'd stood beside her when other alphas questioned a witch becoming Luna. He'd built her a magic library in the Eastern Wing without being asked. He'd proven himself in 1,000 small ways and several large ones. Most importantly, he'd stopped trying to protect her and started trusting her to protect herself. "Are you happy?" Bryn asked. Reyna considered the question. Was she happy? Or just less angry than before? Then she thought about waking up this morning to find Dax had planted night-blooming flowers outside her window because she'd mentioned once that she liked them. Thought about the way he listened when she spoke, the way his eyes lit up when she entered a room, the way he'd stood in front of the council and declared that any wolf who disrespected his mate would answer to him personally. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think I am." The ceremony was different from the first one. For starters, Reyna had written most of it herself. No more passive Omega, accepting whatever an Alpha decided to give. This time they stood as equals under the winter moon. 500 wolves assembled, same clearing, different energy entirely. Reyna spoke first. "I accept you, Dax Thornridge, as my mate and equal. Not because the moon goddess chose us, though she did. Not because the pack needs a Luna, though it does, but because you've proven yourself worthy of a second chance, because you've shown me that people can change, because you see me, really see me, and you're not afraid of what you see." The bond stirred in her chest, damaged but healing. Waiting. Dax's turn. His voice was steady and strong. "I accept you, Reyna Vale, as my mate and queen. Not as a replacement for the girl I rejected. That girl deserved better than I gave her. But as the woman you've become, the Moonshadow Witch, the warrior, the most powerful Luna this territory has ever seen. You are my equal in all things, my partner, my salvation, and I swear before the moon goddess and this pack that I will never again underestimate you." The bond snapped into place. It felt like coming home. Like a wound finally healing, like something broken made whole again, but stronger this time, tempered by pain and loss and hard-won understanding. The magic flooded through both of them, bright and pure and right. Around them, the pack exploded in celebration. The Luna coronation followed immediately. Elder Mira placed the silver crown on Reyna's head, while Elder Tom blessed the union. The protection spells that had been crumbling for months surged back to full strength. Barriers solidified, borders strengthened. The territory itself seemed to sigh with relief. Dax addressed the assembled pack. "My greatest failure was underestimating my mate. I looked at her rank and saw weakness. I looked at the curse and saw inevitability. I looked at my own fear and made it her problem." His hand found Reyna's, fingers lacing together. "I won't make that mistake again. Reyna Vale is Luna of Silver Peak. She is Moonshadow Witch. She is my queen, and anyone who challenges her will deal with me. But honestly," he smiled, "they'll probably deal with her first, and I feel sorry for them already." Laughter rippled through the crowd. The tension that had gripped the pack for months finally released. Later, much later, after the celebrations died down and the pack dispersed, Dax and Reyna stood alone in their private chambers. The bedroom was new. She'd insisted on redecorating, erasing any trace of the Luna candidates who'd come before. This space was theirs now. "So," Dax said softly, "we made it." "We did." Reyna turned to face him. "Against all odds and my better judgment, we actually made it." "Having regrets? Ask me in 50 years. He laughed and pulled her close. The bond hummed between them, whole and strong. She could feel his emotions now, love and relief and gratitude and wonder, could feel how much this moment meant to him. "Ah, I love you," he whispered against her hair. "Prove it every day." It was challenge and promise, both. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the broken ceremony 4 months ago. This was fire and need and partnership. This was two equals choosing each other despite everything that tried to tear them apart. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Reyna smiled. "I love you too, by the way, in case that wasn't clear." "It wasn't," Dax grinned. but I'm happy to hear it anyway. 6 months later, Raina stood in the new magic library Dax had built, 3 stories of books and spell components and research space. Her hand rested on the gentle swell of her stomach. Pregnant, with the first Thornridge heir in a generation. Maven had confirmed it last week, and then spent an hour lecturing about prenatal vitamins and proper shielding spells. Dax appeared in the doorway, drawn by the bond even though she hadn't called. He always seemed to know when she needed him. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" "Yeah." She turned to face him. "Just thinking about how far we've come." He crossed the room, pulling her into his arms. They stood like that for a while, wrapped around each other, the bond singing contentment between them. Outside, Silver Peak thrived. The protection spells held stronger than they had in generations. Allied pacts spoke of the Alpha King who'd learned humility and the Witch Queen who'd claimed her power. Stories spread of their strength, their partnership, their unbreakable bond. Some endings were actually beginnings in disguise, and some bonds, once broken, and could be rebuilt into something even stronger. "What are you thinking about?" Dax asked. Raina smiled. "Just that you'd better be ready for this. Maven says witch babies have magic from birth. Our child is going to be chaos." "I've been dealing with chaos since I met you." He kissed her forehead. "I think I can handle it." Famous last words, Alpha King. They laughed together, standing in their library, building their future, living the life that almost never happened. The life they'd fought for, the life they'd earned. Together. From public rejection to powerful redemption, Raina and Dax showed us that real love requires more than fate. It requires respect, growth, and the courage to rebuild what's been broken. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more inspiring tales coming your way. Tell me what moment hit you the hardest, and share this with someone who needs to hear that second chances are possible when they're truly earned. Until next time, remember, you are worthy of love that sees your strength, not your weakness. Now go claim your crown.